Welcome everyone to our class this morning here on a rainy day in Southern Oregon. Welcome all of you in the room and those of you online. Great to have you with us for our class today. Our format is always, Guy's going to speak around 60 minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back for our Q&A to where you can ask Guy questions if you're on GoToWebinar directly, or you can write them in the chat box or question box and Kate will help you behind the scenes there. Also, online, if you have any technical problems, do go to the same place, the GoToWebinar question box. You can also reach Kate at support@guyfinley.com. So we'll do our best we can to help you with the technological discrepancies that come up, and then in the class here, your discrepancy would be if you have a cell phone on right now, please turn it off so it doesn't disrupt the class. So now's the time to do that. All right, I think we're going to get started. I'll read the topic and the key lesson, and then we'll get into Guy's talk. The topic today is how to go beyond any painful struggle you may have with life. And the key lesson reads, being is a conscious relationship with what is now. Knowledge is a relationship with what was, the conditioned content of the past.
Good morning. Before I get into the talk, how many of you could understand the gist of that key lesson? So if I live in thought, I live in knowledge, because thought is knowledge. And if I live in knowledge, I live in the past, and that I see everything through the eyes of that knowledge, which is the past, which means it isn't really I who is present, but it is another order of an unconscious nature that calls itself I, and that I lend myself to through identifying with it, because as I identify with that particular sense of myself, it strengthens that consciousness and its identification, making me feel more and more real the more that I resist what is now. It is never my intention to create in you the opposite reason for why it is that we meet here in person or why we have these talks online the way we do. Confusion is a labyrinth. And it is a necessary revelation that becomes a crystallization the more you resist the fact that as you are, you don't understand what is being presented. But the fact that I don't understand what's being presented doesn't mean that what is being given to me, what is being shared with me, isn't already a part of my understanding. That's why we have truth classes, so that we can all experience and see the same understanding. So that confusion pretends to be you caring about what you don't understand. When confusion is not caring about what you don't understand, confusion is keeping you from understanding that if you can use the appearance of it, you can begin to escape the captivity inherent in its appearance. Did that confuse you? I say this to you because I have a lot that I want to share with you today. And knowing what I want to share, I understand the limitation, not just in the insights and ideas themselves, not because the insights and ideas are necessarily incomplete, but because every insight that is put into words is a form of knowledge, and knowledge by its nature is always incomplete. And when you take the knowledge to be the thing, you're done. So how many of you have any form of struggle in your life? Isn't it crazy every day? Struggle with him, with her, with this, with that, with my health, with my money, with my family, with the weather, with whether or not I slept or didn't sleep that night. Struggle to understand the dreams, the regrets. Struggle to escape my confusion by identifying with it. And I want to bring you to a place where you can start to understand that there is something you can see that will begin to bring an end to any struggle you've ever had. Because you see, the problem to begin with is that you struggle with separate instances. You struggle with this and you struggle with that. You struggle up here, you struggle down there. And as long as you struggle with any individual component that your consciousness brings up, you will never come to the end of the struggle that is the nature of that consciousness itself. And that's where we must, as aspirants who want to know something of the divine life, we must learn what that means so that we can get to the point where we start to realize, you know what, every struggle is because something has interrupted what I thought I needed or wanted or had to have. And my resistance to what has produced that in me, my opposition to that, we're going to learn about opposites today. My opposition to that is always because in the moment that it comes, I feel like something is being taken from me or something that I have is threatened. And in that split second, I feel like, oh no, something is missing from my life or it's about to go missing, and I have to keep everything together one way or the other, by hook or crook. I've got to keep this thing in place that I call my life. That incessant dissatisfaction. Sweet God, are you more grateful for your life every day or more dissatisfied as an average with your life every day? And the answer is it's dissatisfaction. We know nothing of a true gratitude, which I'm going to help you understand today. So here's the essential problem. Then we're going to look at the reasons for it, and then we're going to have some idea of a way to work at resolving it. The constant sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction is because, and please don't reject it summarily, let me help you see it, you are quite literally missing half of your life. Quite literally missing half of your life. And it's not your soulmate or your flame brother or sister, whatever the hell they call all this nonsense. And not only are you missing that half of yourself, but you don't know the half that's missing, and you don't know where to look for it. Now listen to me. When you think to yourself, well, Christ is missing, God is missing, the Buddha nature is missing. That's what's missing from my life. A quiet mind is missing from my life. You can fill in all of the blanks, and it doesn't matter what you say. Whatever you say is not what's missing, but in truth, the mind that is seeing it and speaking to you that way is responsible for you missing the half of your life that's missing. So let me say that I intend to clarify some of what we spoke about on Sunday, last Sunday. And to that end, I would just ask bring up that second key lesson, which is the one from Sunday, just so we can all get on the same page. You see it? Once we understand that all forces, even the seemingly contradictory ones, are secretly complementary, We stand not only on the threshold of discovering the timeless secret of letting go, but at the same time, find that we are well on our way to realizing the unconditional holiness of life. Once we understand that all forces, celestial, planetary, even the seemingly opposing ones, because that's what contradictory is, isn't it? Even the things that seem to oppose me in this life do not oppose me, but they are complementary to the possibility I have of entering into the inherent holiness in the appearance of those forces. Do you see the difference? Nice deep breath. Back it up a little bit. Everyone has heard the expression one way or the other. It's part of the root of our study, and you can finish it. The inner determines the outer. The inner determines the outer. As goes my attention,
so comes my experience.
Well, you're like geniuses. The inner determines the outer. As goes my attention, so comes my experience. Now, these seeming opposites, inner, outer, opposites. My attention, the experience out there creates what my attention attends to creates my experience in here. Do you see that these things in our minds, there's the outer world and here's the inner world. And I think I have to change the outer world in order to change the inner world. Yes? I think I need to give my attention to abundance. Yes, that was sarcastic. I have to give my attention to my soul. Yes, this is all sarcastic. I need a soulmate. Better off getting shoes that fit. That these inner and outer attention and experience are related. And not only are they related, but it is their relationship that determines our experience of life. That there is a relationship, a direct relationship, an inseparable relationship between the inner and the outer, and an inseparable relationship between my attention and my experience of the outer world. They are inseparable, which means what? It means that one does not exist without the other. You have no experience without attention. What did Buddha say? Tree falls in the wood, no one's there to hear it. Does it make a sound? Without the ears to hear, there is nothing to be heard. Without a sound, there's no need for ears. The whole idea is that there is this mutual dependency between what we see as opposing forces, that until we recognize that these opposites do not oppose me or even themselves, we must sit and live in a life that is missing half of all of the possibility of fulfilling our own true powers, of giving ourselves what we are meant to have in this life, which is a life that is not divided up between outer and inner, between what my attention goes to and the experience it produces. It must be seen as a singularity. And so one's study, if they're going to grow at all, must begin to recognize that if I'm ever going... Here, quick story, slowing it down. Let me bring you into this first. Have you ever said, ha? Have you ever seen, oh my God, I didn't see that coming? Yes or no? And I'm not talking about the news. Oh my God, where did that violence come from in me? Oh my God, I didn't just blame that person, I hated them. Where did that hatred come from? Oh my God. I don't care that the world is suffering because I got a little bit more of what I think I have to have. And then you're stuck. Oh my God, where did that come from? Yes or no? I didn't see it coming. So can you see that you keep not seeing where things are coming from? Sorry for the convoluted statement. Yes or no? I'm always shocked it's like, how could I continue to be always shocked when seeing what was unsuspected, and yet there it is again and again and again. Yea or nay? So here's two brothers, and they go to a family reunion that is known for its hostility amongst the participants. Do any of you know those? Do you ever say to yourself, you know, I'm prepared. I have a few speeches ready to go. I thought this through pretty clearly, and I can watch me take the rug out from underneath his feet when he does that passive aggressive comment. I'm going to show him the nature of love. So here's two brothers. They're going to a family reunion or a business, whatever it is. And they walk in, and boom. That's as much as I'll say about it. I have too much to present. And the one brother, the Hulk, comes out. The other brother actually sits there. His face doesn't get stressed. He seems more alert than he was the moment before. The one brother goes through the iteration of all the blame and anger and trying to punish and all that. And when they get in the car to go home, he says to his brother, how did you do that? How did you know? You must have known that that was about to take place, and yet I couldn't. How did you know? And you know what the other brother says? I love this. One day you will too. I could see it coming. Oh, the magic in those words. The safety, the strength, the compassion, the kindness. I could see it coming. Not I could see what was coming because of what he said. I could see that what was about to come was because of a relationship that I don't understand with some part of me that is inextricably tied into every tormenting thought and feeling said by someone else or to myself for that matter. I could see it coming. Now, what does that mean? First of all, how many of you get the gist of that? Wouldn't it be nice? I get up in the morning, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, and here comes the voices, here comes the regrets, here comes the anxiety. How can you be anxious when you wake up? Barbara? yeah, I can't see it coming. So how am I going to be someone who can see it coming? I have to learn to see the invisible. I have to learn to see the invisible. Now, that sounds at first like, well, that's stupid. If it's invisible, how do you see it? I hear you. We begin by understanding that we see less than half, not even half. We see half of a half of everything that is going on in this life. And why do we only see half of half? Because all we see is what our reactions tell us we've seen. That's what we see. So essentially, we see through the eyes of an unconscious nature that can only react to an event that has transpired and believes that the reaction that it has to the event proves that I am not part of the event, but the event is punishing me, and that's why I've had this moment of, oh my God, and all of the negative reactions that follow it. Please, yes or no? We see the wind. There was quite a bit of wind. We see the wind as it moves through the trees, do we not? But when we see the wind moving through the trees, do we see the relationship? Or do we see the wind we don't want, the leaves that we don't want to rake up? So that we don't ever see that there is an absolute ceaseless movement between yin and yang, between emptiness and fullness, between the opposing pressure systems that one exits and one enters, and that one enters and one exits, and that there is this movement as certainly as there are waves and currents in the ocean, and that we live without knowing it in an invisible ocean of forces that we are never present to, because the forces produce reactions in us that are inseparable from the forces, and then believe that the reactions are somehow caused by something acting on us, instead of seeing the beautiful relationship between emptiness and fullness, between disturbance and peace. Please. The world we see, what is invisible to us, so far outweighs what we can see with these eyes, what we can hear with these ears. Did you ever think of this? Yesterday, myself and a couple men were out on the links. I really love to go out on golf courses when they're, or for that matter, mountains, it doesn't matter. Everything's pretty green on a golf course. Now, our world, by and large, in the more temperate zones, green is everywhere, isn't it? How about a night sky with that Mediterranean blue, one of my favorite colors when the sun is setting? How about when the sun catches all of the clouds when it's going down and everything turns these red and pink hues? You understand what I'm saying? Is the form separate from the color that reveals it? Is the form separate from the colors that reveal it? No. So every color that you see, inseparable from the forms that it requires, every color elicits and brings up inside of you a certain feeling. That's why green with jealousy, red with anger, black with depression. Yes or no? I was disappointed in one respect, because I had written this as a title of a book that I was going to work on, and then I don't know when it was, about a year or so ago, I saw there was a movie. And I was delighted that somebody actually, all the light you do not see. If those colors, the simple colors that this visible spectrum can produce in us emotional correspondence through the impression, do you have any idea how many colors you are seeing and receiving all the time through subtler aspects of your own being? So that there's never a moment when colors aren't working on you. Even when your eyes are closed, colors are working on you. Because there's no darkness without light. Light is everywhere. God is everywhere. So is everything that is manifested through his ray of creation. Please, I must go on. So there is this immensity. I am, as I like to say, this life is kind of like a cosmic swizzle stick in the soul, stirring it up, stirring it up. Stir it up. Stir it up. We are... You hear music, you get stirred up, don't you? Stirred up. And yet, what do I know of all of that? What do I know of the relationship between everything that's acting on me and what is being acted on? Because you can't separate what is acting on me from what it is acting on, can you? Can you? But we do that. It does that, doesn't it? It doesn't dawn on us that if we ever want in any small measure to be a human being who is created to be all that we are called to be, isn't that part of this incessant ambition, this constant sense of emptiness? Is that I feel like I'm called to be something. But then because we don't understand that the calling to be something is not what the world calls us to be, but we're called to become that which occurs when the interior and the exterior, when the inner and the outer are brought together, and in their marriage is created something that is new and new and new again and again and again. And then there's nothing missing from my life because I'm not missing from the relationship that is life itself. And until I'm a participant in the relationship that is life itself, that is God's life, isn't that God's life, even on this planet, as a subset of a subset of a subset? There is nothing in this planet, on this planet, that isn't what? That isn't always at once complete in the split second, but being completed as these forces, planetary and celestial, act upon what it has been to bring it into a new state of its own being. So that there is this perfect movement, and everything that participates in that movement is a part of that movement, as opposed to you and I who see life as being something apart from what it moves in us. Take a deep breath. I'm going to take a nap. If we're ever going to be whole, can I be whole and be half at the same time? So if I only have half a life, and then I've spent the last 4,000 years, maybe longer, it's time for me to share something with my wife. I wasn't going to tell her this. I wasn't, but I said 4,000 years or longer. Without going into detail, my little brother, suddenly had a great need for this genealogy thing, something in the family. So he calls me, you got to do this. All right, I don't want to. No, please. Okay, fine, Gene. So I go and say, and then come back the results. Now, my wife is related to Alexander the Great, to the Queen of England. I mean, all this beautiful stuff. Here's what came back for me. I laughed so out loud when I saw this. Huh? I haven't said yet. It came back and it said that I have more Neanderthal attributes than 67% of all the people that do their genes. Oh, variants, they call them. It's kind of complicated. It doesn't mean that I actually am a Neanderthal, but I thought it was so priceless that here's Joan of Arc and Neanderthal, and more than the average Neanderthal. So it means that my genes go way, 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 way back. Basically, is what it means. So when I say 4,000 years, it may be a lot longer than that. I may have started throwing rocks like 2 million years ago, for all I know. So now you know. But there was at least 4% of Scot in there. Yes, there was. Oh, not Irish, no. In fact, I have a surprise for Fiona when she calls in. All right, I'm spending way too much time messing around. Do I have any chance to ever know what it means to be a whole human being as long as I see life the way I do, which is divided into opposites that are ostensibly set against each other most of the time? Do I have any chance? So in other words, I'm going to have to be able to enter into the world where what is unseen is that these opposites are not set against one another. And the way our mind sees it, and I kind of like the way that, how do I say this? We see things as one or the other, don't we? It's pleasure or it's pain. Happiness or sadness. Fullness or emptiness. Do we not see it like that? It's not one or the other. It's one and the other. It's one and the other, not one or the other. That's the only way we know. Why do we see life as one or the other? Meaning this experience, well, this isn't right. Why do I resist any experience at all? Because it's not the other. Please, do you see it? And when I get the other, why do I try to protect it? Because I don't want the other. But when you start to recognize, as it has been said in innumerable ways, what? You can't serve two masters. You will love one and despise the other. The two masters are not separate masters. They're not the opposites. The two masters are the manifestation of an unconscious nature that only knows how to separate itself from what it wants or doesn't want, so that its sense of self, its identity, can keep going and going and going, reincarnating itself, but never completing itself. Please? Now, I have written a third key lesson. Don't bring it up yet, please. I want you to write it down. I can't tell you how important it is. You'll have to discover it for yourself. And it's not important because I wrote it. Bring up the second key lesson, please. Third key lesson. The awareness of the opposites is the realization of their invisible, inseparable relationship. The awareness of the opposites is the realization of their invisible, indivisible relationship. The indivisible relationship between want and not want. Take a deep breath. Please meditate on that until you can see it. Examples. What hand is this hand? My left hand. Now, can I have a left hand without a right hand? But please don't say, well, I had an accident. Right hand and left hand are what? Opposite. They are part of a perfect symmetry inherent in creation. Left, right, one and the same. Yes? Can you have an up without a down? Can you take an in-breath and then stop there? Go on, just stop. Blow it out. Can you stop there? Can you just have one side of the breath? I'm going to try as long as I can. No, why? Because in-breath, out-breath are a singularity. They aren't opposites, but you can see them as opposites as we see in as separate from out, don't we? But does in exist without out? Does it? What are they? Complementary. They are an expression of an order of being that when it comes into time and matter can only show itself through ostensible opposites that then this mind takes and gravitates toward being this or that. So that I'm forever identified with one opposite or the other. I look at myself, I blame someone, now I'm identified with being a judge. Then I hate myself and judge myself for being. Then I blame myself. Look at the circle. I blame someone, I judge myself, which is blaming myself for being a judge. And then I think to myself, what I need to do is to stop all of that. And then I go and I count pomegranate seeds or take psilocybin, and I'm still a fruitcake because nothing has changed the consciousness responsible for the experience of showing me that everything that I experience seems to be different than the nature that's experiencing it, and it's not. And this is where your work must take you to. What is all of the thought that you have about any moment other than trying to explain or justify to yourself why it is that the experience is the one you don't want? Isn't that what every thought is? Isn't every becoming tomorrow, everything you hope to do and become, isn't that itself born out of something's happened to what I am and what I have, and now I've got to do something to protect the outer world in me so that this world that suddenly feels like it's in dire danger can be brought together again. And it's brought together by what? By identifying with yet another image that is apart from the nature imagining it. And so you have this endless circle of conflict and the endless struggle of trying to complete yourself by a consciousness that in its incomplete nature can only recreate itself and your experience along with it. Now I'm going to take a nap. We only see one side of an event at a time. Please? Yes. Maybe somebody comes and how should I say? Maybe someone comes, and we all know what this is like. They have a corrective comment for you. No, seriously. Even when we're playing golf and we can see each other's faults in the swing, you can say something, and usually because there is a kind of love of the game and a brother, but you say something and as a rule, yeah, I see it, but I also feel a little resistance, a little resentment, a little, I wish it weren't that way. I can see it. Why are you? Here's the point. Somebody says something, tries to help you. And let's say it's not on the golf course, but in your office place or with your family. Do you see somebody trying to help you? Do you? No. And maybe, and by the way, what did Shakespeare say? This is for you, Eric. Methinks thou dost protest too much. What do you think he was saying? He was saying that what you protest over is the proof of what it is that you're protesting about. So here I am, and someone has said something to me, and in a heartbeat, I can't see that my resistance and reaction to their comment is actually the proof to some measure of what they've commented about. Else, why would I resist it? Somebody comes up to Ellen and says, you know what, you're a green-eyed, long-toothed goblin with 4 noses. Now, Ellen might take exception to that, actually. But as a rule, if somebody says something completely untrue about you, do you have a reaction? The only reaction is, okay. You don't react because there's no parallel. There's no relationship to what is acting and what it is being acted on. Keep your attention here. This is a pretty good example of what I'm talking about. My attention just belongs to anything that produces a me separate from what I'm looking at. That's what it does. This consciousness requires a divided life so that it can deliver itself into someone who knows the problem or who will solve it later. So, someone says something to me, and in a heartbeat, I respond in unkindness. They may have been quite sincere and maybe pointing something invaluable out to me. I instantaneously respond in unkindness. Yes or no? Why? Because in a heartbeat, I am identified with the part of me that says I'm not like that, and the part of me that judges you because you've always been like that. So in that moment, this identification is separation. As long as that's not impacting what we're broadcasting, don't do that. Just leave it alone, okay? We're having problems with our big screen in the room, but if it's not messing with anything, don't mess with it. So I can't see that I'm instantaneously separated from the whole of that moment where the inner and the outer are not separate, where my attention is creating my experience because my attention has gone to what I don't want. Not to what is, please. It's gone to what isn't. And when my attention goes to what isn't, the only way it can prove to me that something is real is by resisting what it is imagined. Yes or no, please? So if the problem is, if I'm communicating, if the problem is, meaning the sense of being empty, dissatisfied, incomplete, if the problem for all of that kind of experience, if the problem behind having only half of a life is because as I am presently constituted, this nature can only see half at a time. If that's the problem, what's the solution? I alluded to it. I have to get over this one or the other mentality. It must become one and the other. Your husband, your wife says something, because I know I'm going to get teased about having 67% Neanderthal variance. It's coming. You can't escape it. That's why I didn't want to share it. Now, kind of funny, but there is something in us, and God, tell me why. Why would it bother some image of Guy to understand he has a lot of Neanderthal in him? You have no savoir-faire. You didn't know Neanderthals could speak French, did you? That's because I was a Neanderthal over on that continent. And we did have wine. We whined every time the saber-toothed tigers. How does it become one and the other? By becoming aware of how futile it is to live from one or the other. The endless struggle to constantly try to get everything to complete some circle so that when it does, you can become who you imagined you should have been when you missed the mark the last time. There are so many ways we can approach this. Rampant self-judgment is the full expression of one or the other, isn't it? You able to make that leap? I judge because I'm not like that. If you were a little more, light on your feet, or a little more sensitive, or a little wiser, or, a little more compassionate, if you saw the big picture like I do, yes, I'm being sarcastic, if you saw all of that with my eyes, what a wonderful world it would be. But you don't. So I have to spend my life making sure that you, them, this and that does everything necessary in order to what? Get rid of the pain born of a consciousness acting against itself to prove to itself that it is superior to everything that it looks at. One or the other all the time. And one or the other, by the way, creates time. Doesn't it? Because as long as I'm separate from what I'm judging, then it's going to take a little time to get the sentence laid down and put you in the proper place to see that you perform the way I need you to, or that I perform the way I'm supposed to. That takes time, doesn't it? So time is a product of the illusion of a separation of opposites. Time is the illusion that the opposites are separate. The fall of Adam and Eve. Knowledge of good and evil. What did they fall into? A time nature. A time nature that is tormented by its own knowledge. Because whatever it knows is never enough. And then when it doesn't know enough, it wants more knowledge. Isn't that our experience? I want more knowledge. Until eventually I realize it doesn't matter how much I learn and try to change you, it's not going to. And then my knowledge turns into judgment of myself, and I become a cynic or bitter or hateful. So how do we bring this into a full circle if it's not one and the other? You understand that much now? You can't have one breath. You can't have good without bad. This is what confuses the bejeebies out of people. Of course there's good and evil. In this world, what we call good is anything that judges evil. Because that's how we know what good is. Please, God, that you see it. I know what good is because I can judge evil. Judge not that ye be not judged, said Christ. I know what evil is because I'm good. You don't know what evil is. And that's why I hate you, because you're wrong and I'm right. So right and wrong, good and evil, all of these things are opposites that in this world have a reality because they are brought into a manifestation state by identifying with this unconscious nature that must perpetuate them so that this sense of self can continue as it does. Are we? So, last 8 minutes or so. Nice deep breath. So if I'm at home, I'm home, and actually I don't have to imagine this. I'm trying to log in. Patricia and I have leased electronic vehicles, and you get a rebate if you report it to the Oregon government. Good luck. So I'm at home, and it's like that website waits for you. Here's Guy. Let's frustrate the holy bejeebies out of this man. Let him get this all filled out, and then let's go back and say you missed one thing, and now you have to fill it in all again. Or better yet, you get to talk to somebody who doesn't speak the same language that you do. So all of that brings up what? This terrible world. And by the way, no one's saying the world is good, because it's not. But the basis of the world is good because the basis of the world is holiness. But it has become an unholy world because of an unconscious nature that divides everything up into, that is making me feel this way. And as long as you're sure that that is something to blame, that that is what you feel the problem is in this moment, and why you're such an anxious, irate wreck, as long as it is one creating the other, there will be no end to the other trying to change what has created it. That's called this world. But when you understand that the other, that one did not create the other, but that the one is the other, then in that moment all of the struggle goes. Meaning all of the painful struggle to try to change one or the other, all of that energy is brought into being one and the other at the same time, and then struggling in a new way to maintain your attention and consciously suffer the death throes of a nature that does not want to give up its hold on you any more than Pharaoh wanted to let the Jews go out of Egypt. Now you have a valuable struggle. But you must struggle for what you understand is right, not struggle to prove that you're right. Because in struggling to understand, it means I have to stand where the opposites meet. I have to stand at the intersection of what seems to be opposing forces to this nature long enough to see, oh my God, they aren't opposing. One is bringing something into what was, this image, this identity, and by its entrance into it is stirring the awareness of that which was never aware of itself before. And then the light that was in the darkness suddenly sees the nature of the darkness. And in the awareness of the darkness, the end of this fear of it, and all the rest that accompanies that unconscious nature. In short, if you've understood this, when the tree falls in the woods and it has made a sound, the tree that has fallen in the woods and the sound that it has made is a singularity. They have completed one another. They have completed the purpose for one another. The ears to hear must have that which they hear. If the ears only hear what they want to hear, are they completing their purpose? Are they? If the eye sees only what the eye wants to see, is it completing the purpose of eyes? So in other words, in order to complete the moment, I must be completely there in the moment and let the moment create and complete what it is intended to endlessly, ceaseless rebirth through the intersection of these influences that are forever bringing what was into what is, and what is becomes what was. And you see, if you can, that these are not opposing one another. They are fulfilling the purpose of each other. Do you have your idea of what you must work at? Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
Welcome back, everyone. Now is time for some interaction with Guy, some interaction with you. But before we get to that, I just want to give you all a reminder, and it never hurts to hear it again, that all these free online talks are sponsored by the nonprofit Life of Learning Foundation here in Southern Oregon, where Guy is the director. And as always, we do reach out to you guys to help us. We are it. And so if you'd like to help us, please know that every donation you make, no matter the size, helps us to reach out to the world with these teachings. And you can see right there, if you can donate anytime, even after class, anytime during the week, guyfinley.org/donate. And if you do listen to Guy over a lot of the different platforms, this is the best one to give it because Guy gets all the donations. Sometimes some of the others take a little cut, but it's not a big deal. But if you can donate here, it's the best, guyfinley.org/donate. And that if you're in the U.S., we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and they're tax deductible if that helps you. So thank you for a lot of you who are the ongoing support. We do appreciate it. Only thing else to mention is that we do have all the other classes, which you'll get a reminder for during the week, and encourage you to participate in as many as possible. So that's our opportunity. So let me grab something here. We'll get started. We'll bring Guy in. Guy, do you have anything to share before we get started?
No.
Okay. All right. We have one hand in the queue here and two leftover questions. But I do want to encourage you, if you're on GoToWebinars, now is a good time to raise your hand and to get into the queue. And it can be anything, a question for Guy, some impression, or some gratitude. Any of that you can bring up and share. So let's start with Annette. She's first in our queue. Annette, I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Hello.
Annette, you're unmuted. We don't hear you yet. All right. Katie, maybe you could work with her. Let's go next to Fiona. And Guy, as you can relate to your relative here.
How's it gone?
Hey, now that you're officially a Scot,
Yeah.
you can officially wear the kilt, a tartan kilt.
I would love to.
Well, you must find out what your tartan is, according to your genealogy.
So before we get into our conversation, let me say a special goodbye. Lang me or lumrik.
That's good.
What'd she say? That's good. Yeah, that means that's how you say goodbye to someone special. It means long may your chimney smoke.
Lang me or lumrik, yeah. I mean,
Long may your
it's a good.
long may your lumrik.
Lang me or lumrik. It's
Correct the day. Oh, a little Australian in my Scot there. How's it gone? Which you do on the day? Say that. Which you do on the day?
what
What
you
are you
on the
doing?
day?
What are you doing today?
Oh, what you doing the day?
That's what I said. Okay, that was enough fun. See, I'm working on it. The Neanderthals are very slow on the pickup. That's all.
Lang me or lumrik. Well, I have not surprisingly, being Scottish, I have Viking in my genealogy, which so it is interesting.
There you go.
It's history. So, when you were speaking on Wednesday, it's just so incredible how this is also follows on a lot to that, that the sense of self has these embedded rules in the subconscious sense of self. Because it's very subconscious. And I must say that because it's the middle of the night when I listen to the other talks of where I am in the world, if I'm awake, I will tune in, and I may well fall asleep. But the impact of what's said, when I'm sometimes, what occasionally happens is I get this amazing dream state where I'm actually there, and I can hear very clearly everything that's going on of what you're saying, and it's so direct to the heart. It kind of, when I'm in that state, it kind of takes away the sorry, I just got a call. Sorry,
No problem.
am I back?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. When when it's so direct, it takes away the mind. Like, the mind is very, very, very quiet, and so it's
Correct.
extremely potent.
Correct.
And because then when I wake up, I'm not so clear on what's exactly been said, but I knew, oh my God, that was profound, and I have to listen to it as soon as it's posted. So it is incredible, just all of this work, all of this, the way that you can access that truth, you know, that aspect that's so potent, and what we all must hear, and most importantly must act on, is, you know, just so profound. So I'm very grateful for that.
And just to strengthen the observation, Fiona, and perhaps I'll speak on it next week, the purer the impression, the less person is there receiving it. It is a pure impression requires pure stillness. Pure stillness has no opposites in it, but it can reveal the opposites as being like a reflection in a lake, being a singularity. So that sense that you have of that indescribable unity is factual. That's how we are, I think, meant to live. I would call that a truly meditative life. Our aim is to be increasingly in that state of ceaseless impression, because we are never rejecting or resisting what is impressing itself on us in that moment. Anyway, I'm going to learn how to say some more, Fiona. I'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, Guy. Thank you.
Patricia's at the mic,
Right.
Douglas.
Okay.
I have to correct Guy. Alexander the Great was in 2000 or 3000 BC. I do not know if I'm connected to him, but I am.
There we go.
Fiona, William the Conqueror, which was a Viking that came in when was the president or the king of England. So she said she was a Viking too.
Okay.
Okay. So anyhow, what I wanted to talk about, not that, but I had to correct Guy. William, like Alexander the Great was a zillion years ago. I'm sure he didn't have his DNA. They don't have his DNA anymore. But anyway, listening to this talk, and I love this talk. You can glimpses in and out. I'm sure we've all kind of feel in and out glimpses. But then the mind tries to take it and think about it, and it can't go there because that's dividing it again. And I realized that actually last week I was trying to work to stay in the middle. And I realized that thought is, because I like the koan, if a tree falls in the forest, does it hear a sound? I can remember seeing clearly that over and over through the years, but I go to think about it, and I can't. It has to be alive and come in at the moment, not something I could think about, bring into knowledge. So.
Okay. Debbie's coming up?
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Debbie. Before class, I stood up and I said something about what Guy had said on Wednesday night about the fact that we don't stick with an impression long enough so that it doesn't bother us. and this is the answer to it. So if we see both opposites, then that's when it won't bother us. I also wanted to talk about a quote that he used from Gurdjieff on Wednesday night, which was, "Blessed be the man with the soul. Blessed be the one with the soul."
No. If you, look, you have to do your own work, but if you find something that moves you, that you like for whatever reasons, sweet God, don't butcher it. Learn it, eat it, swallow it, live with it. Don't have a half you-know-what relationship to it. Blessed are those that have a soul. Blessed are those that have none.
Right.
Woe be it unto those who have it in formation.
Right, and I think that's, I actually looked it up to see what it meant, because I had a sense, but it's the inner struggle that we have to go through.
That is the inner struggle.
Right, so, yeah, just more grist for the mill, as you would say.
Yes. Okay, Doug?
Okay, we're going to go. We have a few questions. Annette was apparently not able to speak, but she wrote a question, and here it is. And I think Kate can send it to you. Annette asks, does the life of not opposing things, but rather seeing the complementary nature of everything ultimately lead to a non-judgmental but peaceful existence, whereby we shed some ego state? As we journey on in life, we may think to our own self be true, be authentic. Does this sense of identity contradict the teachings of non-duality?
Does this sense of identity? Well, of course, any sense of identity is the antithesis of unity. But I think that we just need to strengthen something, Annette. You asked, does the life of not opposing things, but rather seeing the complementary nature of everything, ultimately lead to a non-judgmental, peaceful existence? No, the true non-judgmental, peaceful experience of life, the true non-judgmental, peaceful existence is already here. So you aren't being led to it. You are learning to shed what is between you and it. So you're not moving through time and space to acquire what you've imagined is a non-judgmental, peaceful existence. You are beginning to see, and only, by the way, I might add, because there is a non-judgmental, peaceful existence, that's why you can see all that is disturbed and everything that judges. What judges can never see that it judges, that's what it does. But the light dwelleth in the darkness. There is something in that consciousness that can see all of the things that we are working to see. The more clearly it is seen, the less likely it is to live in mistaken identification with it. So then you're not becoming something, you're shedding the consciousness that's trying to become something. Time disappears. As long as there's this and that, left and right, up and down, good and bad, there is time. When there is time, there is division. Where there's division, there is duality, so forth and so on. I hope that helps elucidate? Yeah, a little better what you asked.
Okay, everyone on GoToWebinar, now's the time. There's over 100 of you out there. If there's anything on your heart, now is always a good time to bring it up. Even if you don't think you have it all together, you can ask Guy a question, something that you'd like. So raise your hand by clicking on your little hand icon, and that'll bring you into the queue. But in the meantime, Guy, we have 2 leftover questions from Wednesday, and the first one is from Rich.
Hold on, before you go to Rich, We have a leftover Leah.
Leftover Lee.
Hi, my name is Leah. I saw something very clearly in this talk. This nature, it has identified what Leah is good at. Example, time management. So it then determines that it finds it so easy to blame anyone else that is not good with time management and can justify that. And I can see where it takes things that Leah might have the personality might have a proclivity to, and then can be superior to others who don't have that same proclivity and so easily justify that want and not want. That circle and how it anchors itself, just anchored in time. When someone's late, Leah will pace in time of the justification, the disrespect, the identification with time management that she has.
How many of you are now terrified of ever having a meeting with Leah?
Yeah.
Get bloody sick of it. It's a real conundrum. This unconscious nature that ultimately is responsible for whatever the moment may be that you resist because of its identification with the opposite. It takes the moment of the pain produced by its own movement as the proof that something has moved against it. And then it resists the pain it has created and ensures that you will never come to your fascination, to its fascination with that pain. So that the more you push away the pain of those moments, which is all it wants to do, get away from it, create a time to come, change this, avoid that, the more you push away the suffering inherent in the moment of the actual relationship between that moment and the conscious, the more you do that, the further away you will ever be from getting bloody sick of it. You must see that I can't stand this, but God help me, I can't change it either. Then you will stop blaming and judging and trying to change. Instead, you will deliberately enter into the voluntary suffering required when you stand at the intersection of those forces in the center of one's consciousness, which is the center of everyone's consciousness, so to speak. On we go, Doug.
Okay, we will take Rich's question from Wednesday. He asks, if you're supposed to let go in life, that conflicts with achieving life's goals. How do I reconcile it?
Hi, Rich. I think it was, I'm going to guess, I'm 75. I'm going to guess 40 years ago, 38 years ago, I wrote, not my first book, but what became a best-selling book called The Secret of Letting Go. And there's a story in that book. And basically it's about a man who lives in some country that has been taken over by a dark magician, i.e. this unconscious mammon, this divided nature. And everybody in that world is hypnotized to doing the things the dark magician wants them to do. And that ostensibly runs against any form of conscience, but so convinced are they through the influences of this nature that this is what they must do in order to be successful. So the hero in our story, and there's always a hero in our story, one day he's sitting there and he asks himself this question, Rich. If I'm really doing what I want to do, why does it hurt so much? I'm doing what I want to do. Why am I suffering? In fact, I've spent my whole life trying to get everything so I could do exactly what I wanted to do all the time, and I'm a wreck. Why? Maybe because it was never me that designed what I thought it meant to be a successful person. And that I've fallen into a world that has defined success as something separate from the idea of failure. Ergo, God forbid that you should ever fail at anything, so don't try if it looks like you will. And at all costs, keep everything that makes it look like you're successful in place all the time and make sure everybody sees it. Then you're a successful, suffering fool. That's a good answer. On we go.
All right, Guy, we have Rebecca next, and then Kate is going to come up to the mic. Rebecca asks, I find this journey a divine mess, just sitting in this earthly crucible, feeling the resistance and seeing all the ways these eyes just want no part of wisdom. Don't know if Guy has anything to comment on this. No worries if not.
Oh, I've got something I'll say. And that was nothing. I'm in a divine mess. Let me look at me. I see myself. Everybody goes through this, Rebecca. If you don't, you're on the wrong path. But at a certain point, you have to see, well, there's this resistance to seeing the way I am. That's what I call the crucible. The crucible isn't born of resisting seeing the way you are. The crucible is accepting seeing the way you are and not judging it. That's the crucible. Now, how do I begin to work my way in and through that? I don't know, you don't see it out there, but when I'm done with a talk, I've spent, depends, maybe as little as 30 minutes on an idea. Maybe some days I'll spend a week on a single paragraph, depends. But when I'm done, and it's in this note, when I'm done, I throw it away. I always do. Why? Done. Anything in me that wants to hang on to something that shines or reflects or that I can look back at and know something from, anything like that is the antithesis of, you see the Buddhists and other religious, they create these beautiful enneagrams, these mandalas, priceless expressions in colors of the movement of all of these forces that I described to you today. Something as small as that sometimes, and then when they're done, they brush it away. We are meant to brush away. Was it yesterday, Sunday? Yesterday, didn't I talk about the carryover? Yes. The remains of the day. We're the only thing that carries over, anything from a moment before, can only carry it over because it believes it's other than what it's carrying. But when you see you're not other than what the moment brings and reveals and gives you, then you don't need to try to carry it or share it or hold on to it because it's completed, it's done. You're done. It is finished, said Christ. Stay in the middle, Rebecca, and watch. I just decided what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday night. You've never seen a picture of yourself that you're not fascinated with. Honest to God. Oh, that's the worst picture I've ever seen. Wow. I must have lost weight. I hate that place I'm in. I love this place I'm in. All the same psychopathic relationship to the present moment. On we go, Doug. Here comes the Kate.
He's coming up, okay.
Good morning. My name is Kate. So Eric wasn't able to make it today. Eric is my husband, and for anyone who doesn't know, he wasn't able to make it to class, but he is watching, and he wanted me to send in a comment, especially because you mentioned Shakespeare.
I was going to
favorite.
say, this is for you, Eric.
He's our resident Shakespeare expert. And then I also just noticed a comment and question that came in on Facebook from Jill. I got your question, Jill, and I'm going to read that after Eric's, and you won't believe it, it goes right along with it. So here's what Eric says first, and these are both a little long, but it's worth it.
Happy to have it.
So Eric says, speaking of Shakespeare, in King Lear, if I remember this right, there is an old man who has recently been blinded and who is suffering, and he is about to take his own life by jumping over a cliff. His son appears, who is in disguise, and the old man doesn't recognize him. And his son stops him from jumping and basically shakes him awake. And the old man says, I do remember now. Henceforth I'll bear affliction till it do cry out itself, enough, enough, and die. He instantly turned unconscious suffering into conscious suffering.
Yes.
Spiritually speaking, it is not my affliction, and it is not my job to reconcile. There is unnecessary suffering when I think it is my personal affliction, and that it is my job to reconcile it.
Well said, Eric.
Now here's this note that came in from Jill. Jill says, Hi Guy, thank you for everything. I have a brain injury and severe neck injury that has impaired all my functions and changed my whole life. I have been healing alone, which has been harder than I can describe. I appreciate this approach you speak of, and I want to apply it. There is a degree of acceptance I must develop, and yet a continued drive to search for proper care and solve problems on my own. How can I live in the state of being you describe while dealing with this dichotomy of acceptance and also only making progress because of my very hard and painful efforts? Thank you.
Well stated, well worth answering. In essence, she's asked, I understand the need to wake up and to stay with the affliction until I'm no longer so fascinated by it that I let it end itself, which it will. But on the other hand, I need to be proactive. I want to read, learn about everything I can do to restore my brain function. Like yourself, Jill, years and years ago, my neck was broken. I wanted to do everything I could do to get past the limitation of wearing this dog collar, this huge collar. And I would not recommend, because your injury perhaps was more serious than mine, my solution to this broken neck was to take off the collar and go back to working as a handyman, which was a terrible mistake because I was painting and I had to constantly pick my head up, look backwards. So I tested everything. If I want to outgrow a limitation, I have to understand the nature of the limitation. if I see the limitation through the eyes of what is naturally resisting any further pain, then my resistance will be connected to the identification with that pain that I don't want, and I'll be dead right there. I won't go any further. Sometimes we need to know and have certain knowledge about our bodies. You're a fool if you don't, honestly. I'm not an adherent of Western medicine by any stretch of the imagination, but there are benefits connected to certain short-term processes, and then there are a lot of benefits to understanding the overall nutrition of the body and how the overall body and the mind are connected. So let me find out I'm all the time studying the brain. I want to know. What is it that will enhance the activity of the brain? What is the brain doing as it gets to be 75 years old? And what was I talking about? So let me be proactive, but let it not be a punishment born out of wanting to procure something that's going to free me from the pain that only exists as bad as it does when I don't want to be in it. Do you understand? It is a razor's edge. It is a razor's edge. But you will learn, as you must have, or you wouldn't be sending in this question. I think, just personally speaking, there's probably isn't a bone in my body that hasn't been broken. And most of the diseases I've had. I got paralyzed. I wouldn't change anything. You couldn't pay me to change anything. Why? Because so many lessons inherent in seeing where it is that you didn't know how identified you are and were with this, that, or the other, with the way you look, with the way you walk, with the way you talk, with your ability to communicate or not. All of those things, we live from a consciousness that is not our own, that from out of which, as does the kernel of corn bring forth the stalk, we are intended to be gradually in a relationship with what is completing itself. And then listen to this, and I will talk about this in length one day. When I am doing that, there's no such thing as someone or someone that is more or less than you are. There is no such thing. I don't care if you're laying on your deathbed. There is no such thing as someone who is more or less than you are. And you need to get over that psychotic brain that loves to think about itself and puff itself up and make itself this and all of that's got to go so that you can use what you're being given instead of trying to give yourself what essentially is using you the way that it is. And if there's no one else, I'll say goodbye on that lovely note.
Guy, we have Claudia Mancato in the queue.
And there's
I'll hand it to you.
And there's a leftover
The
Ellen
room.
coming up.
Oh, she's in the queue, and I'm going to unmute her now.
Stay there. Okay.
Claudia, you want to, there you are.
Guy, thank you. I just, as I've been working with watching the opposites and staying in the middle, really what I've been seeing is that I really have no trust in God.
Correct.
I see that as much praying, reading that I do, and as I feel the fear in me, I just see that even as I'm praying, I am trying to make my own decisions.
Yep.
And where is the love of God?
Listen to me. I know how difficult it is to start seeing that, but you should find some encouragement, not an identity, but some encouragement in the fact that it is God that is allowing you to see that. Because it's certainly not the unconscious nature that you're a captive of and that has convinced you that all of this movement of prayer and all that stuff, not that there's anything wrong with prayer and meditation, but it is a rung on the ladder, not the fulfillment of the journey. And it all has to go. And that's where you are. And it's a great place to be. You'll find out if you stick with it. The angels are happy for you. On we go,
you,
Doug. What? I know. On we go, Doug. Ellen's up.
Hello, I'm Ellen. Yesterday on Insight Timer, Guy talked about excess baggage. And I had an experience yesterday that gave me a better understanding of the excess baggage. And then your talk today
Yes.
broadened that. So the experience was I have a huge expense coming up. And I could see Ellen going into her usual thing with money. And anyway, I won't go into all the little details, but any time I have to spend a lot of money, there's a lot of suffering that goes on. And I realized, suddenly the expression excess baggage jumped into my mind. And I realized, I always think excess baggage is a memory of someone, or, how we carry around these resentments. But I could see that really the excess baggage is this whole collection of thoughts and feelings that make up this Ellen nature, this character.
Every eye is an entire caravan. Every eye
Yes.
is an entire caravan. 150 camels loaded with all of the associations that eye has collected to prove itself real over the past.
Right. Right. And so I can't just tell myself, oh, I'm not going to think about that.
Correct.
This is a whole basis of this character. And then from what you were saying today, I got this bigger picture. It's not just Ellen's character, but it's this whole human divisive nature that sees everything in the opposites.
It's the whole level of an unconscious nature that in and of itself is not evil, but that from it comes evil because it imagines the opposite it needs to rescue itself.
Right, right. And it's that human consciousness. It's not just me.
Correct.
It's this excess baggage left over from the fall of
the days of Neanderthal.
It goes all the
Yeah,
way back
it
to
does.
the Neanderthals. I don't know, this is just like a whole new perspective on all the things that trouble
Yes.
Ellen.
Live with it, study it, deepen it. You're seeing a new level. Now you must enter into it.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Anything else, Doug? If not, well,
It's all you. It's all you in the class there now, Guy.
all right. If there's anybody coming up, let them speak now, or we will say good day. Good day. That's us.